One thing with NFTs that has been discussed is multi-chain movement. Is there the ability, you think, in the future for NFTs on the Axie platform to be transferred to another game? Possible?
Sure. So yeah, that's been one of the promises, I think, of NFTs and blockchain games, and we haven't seen many compelling implementations of that yet. I think one thing that we've seen is with Axies, right, is like we can build multiple games that incorporate the Axie assets. So right now we have a card battle game. That's the main product that we have out there. But right, there's also breeding, which you can also look at as a separate game. And then we also have another game in development. So I think like this idea of, right, like you have one team of Axies that can be used in many different games. That is kind of a form of that. I think like one thing that people are excited about is, okay, you take your Axies and you can bring them to another gaming ecosystem, and they may have some utility there. There have been some like experiments around that, but it's still quite early. I think right now everyone is focused on building a compelling experience for their own user base before doing these kind of cross-marketing collaborations, right? That kind of only makes sense, I think, once there are multiple large gaming communities out there. And it makes sense to kind of cross-pollinate. I think right now I think everyone is really focused on just making fun, workable products. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And as far as those products, as you stated, you want to make sure they're working properly before you work with others. So tell us a little bit about the process of getting Axie Infinity to work properly. What were some of the obstacles you had to overcome throughout this project?
Yeah, so we've been building since 2018. So it's been a really, really long journey. And there were tons of things, right? So technology is quite primitive. So there were a lot of things that we had to build ourselves. We built our own marketplace. We even built our own Ethereum sidechain to solve scalability issues. We have our own wallet because one of our principles is that we want everything that our users touch and interact with while they're playing Axie to be super beautiful. So we had to build a lot of stuff that was outside of the core game experience. But when we put them all together, right, so the scaling technology, the fiat on-ramp, the NFT marketplace, and then a fun game, when we put it all together, that's actually when the hypergrowth started.
Nice. And I wanted to ask too, as far as with the wallet and with you building it, is the project inherently decentralized? Is it more of a centralized nature? And also, is there any risk? Can people lose money on it, or is it just a way to play and earn for themselves?
Sure. So I think like different people have different definitions of decentralization. But yeah, the wallet is on our own sidechain with a validator set. And yeah, over time, I think we'll get more decentralized. Yeah. And then in terms of the earning aspect of it, right, there are a lot of people who just play Axie not for fun and for the social experience. So yeah, I think that while there are some people whose primary motivation is earning, and there have been a lot of great examples of that. There's a documentary called Play to Earn. Yeah, I would say there are always risks with new technology. So.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and if you haven't seen Play to Earn, we actually featured that for Consensus Week. So you can check that out and see how people are actually learning and gaining from that. And because of decentralization being on a scale, a lot of people think you'd have to be completely decentralized or completely centralized. It's like, no, there's a scale. So you have to work your way there. I'm glad to hear about that. But also, too, I wanted to ask, as far as the community, are there any plans to maybe enter the esports arena, maybe sponsor a team from different countries? Is that something you're thinking about in the future?
Yeah. So right now we're really focused on... Right, so there actually is quite a bit of competitive. There's a competitive battle ecosystem that's arisen. There are tournaments. We have a leaderboard. People fight for real stakes. We have sponsors who come into the ecosystem as well. And so yeah, that's something that we're doubling down on in the future. We actually just hired somebody at Sky Mavis to work specifically on our competitive scene, our esports scene. So I'm super excited about that. And Yeah, I would say like, keep an eye out for more stuff related to that. I think the Axie competitive scene, that's like, it's a really important aspect of our ecosystem. People just love battling pets against each other, right? And that's a lot of where the fun kind of is derived from.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, Jeff, will we see you in any of those games? We'll see Jeff show up to play anybody?
Like at the beginning, like I used to play a lot, like when the game first came out, and I was okay. But like these days, there are professionals, man. Like I can't compete with them. They're just too good. But I take that as a positive sign.
Oh yeah, and that means that they've been spending the time on the game, actually, building on it. And these are the users that help build the platform, right? So just for my own selfish reasons, I wanted to ask, will virtual reality be introduced at a certain point?
It's not on the immediate roadmap. I think so. A lot of people, right? They have this conception of, okay, the metaverse, the future of gaming, right? It's going to be like AR, VR. There's this, right? It's kind of maybe like colored by pop culture, Ready Player One. Yep. Our conception of the future is, it might not look like that. It might just be some place where people can socialize, have fun, and perhaps participate in these digitally native forms of work or professions, right? It's like, if you can have fun, if you can make social, form these social networks and interactions, and then also, right, like sustain yourself, you have, right, and you can do that all digitally in a digitally native platform. I think that's one, right, definition of the metaverse, and it's not. I think it's not reliant on AR or VR. I think that's really cool. Like super long term, maybe like, right, like that could happen. But try and be like focused on the immediate roadmap.
Oh yeah, and I can see virtual reality arcades where you maybe show up and socialize with people, and then you can choose a game to play, and then they'll go into your gaming universe. So yeah, I would love to see something like that in the future, as far as virtual reality goes. But as far as the gaming part goes, what are the different countries that you are serving? Because if the metaverse happens 10, 20 years from now, that's fine. But in the meantime, you do have users from all around the world. Which countries have the biggest, influence on the game and play the game the most?
Yeah, so we have players from every single country in the world except for Central African Republic. So it's like basically everywhere. 60% of our users, though, are from the Philippines. Philippines is a huge market for us. There's an amazing community of content creators there. People who are starting up these scholarship programs and getting their friends and family to play. So it's a really special ecosystem. We also have quite a few players from South America, like the West, right, like North America, Europe, East Asia. It's really it's a very global movement. So.
Mm-hmm. And it's funny because in America, you would think more kids would want to play a game where they can earn money, simply because they do it for virtual money. I have a nephew. He asks me for money all the time for Fortnite V-Bucks, and it's not real money, but he uses it to buy skins. But hopefully that dynamic can shift to where they can play maybe Axie Infinity, actually earn money from it, and they won't have to ask their parents for allowance or something at that point. But yes, great to see. And another thing I wanted to add or ask was, in the future, let's say it's the year 2040, where do you see Axie Infinity as a gaming platform and the gaming system as a whole?
I think, in the far future, my hope is that Axie is this incredible brand that is an ecosystem that's really driven forward by its users. I hope that, right, like our long-term vision is for Sky Mavis to just be one of many organizations building games on top of the Axie NFTs. We want to see third-party game developers from within the community, right? This kind of user-generated concept or user-generated content explosion happen with the Axie characters, right? So I think like long-term, that's really part of our mission. I hope that Axie is just one of many kind of digital economies that kind of spawned out of gaming. I think that's going to be the case. I think there's going to be maybe some interconnection around them, especially around the communities and perhaps the forms and stores of value. So yeah, I think hopefully that economic freedom for gamers can be a way of delivering economic freedom for everyone in the world. Right. So if we equate understanding crypto, understanding blockchain with kind of breaking out of the suppression of the current economic system, right? Then if we're introducing people to blockchain and crypto through games, we're using games as a mechanism to transmit freedom. And I think that's really powerful.
Oh, yeah. And I agree with you there, brother. And I think that long term, when we see games like this created, you will start to see the economic freedom come from people who have been in it a long time, which will bring in more users and, the snowball effect from there. And I just want to ask, as far as that effect, do you think the gaming will move from just online to maybe PS4, PS5, Xbox, some of the more centralized ways to play games? Do you think that's a possibility?
So right now, Axie is primarily mobile and desktop, right? So most of our users are on Android. I think that's really important. It's really important for us to... Yeah, I think mobile has the largest potential user base because there are way more people who own phones than there are people who own Xboxes or PlayStations, right? Absolutely. So I think one of our ideas is that we want to bring this amazing new technology to anyone who has a mobile phone in the world. So yeah, it's possible that we go onto some of those platforms or even build our own hardware system in the future.
Beautiful.
If we build our own hardware, maybe it would be an Axie phone, actually. So.